tarde, pessoal. Boa tarde a todos. Gostaria primeiramente de agradecer a presença de todos aqui no webinar. Adianto para vocês que está uma chuva aqui em São Paulo imensa. Se vocês ouvirem algum trovão aí no fundo, realmente está caindo o mundo aqui. Gostaria de dizer que a gente está fazendo esse webinar aqui em conjunto com a Object Matrix, né, que é nosso parceiro aqui no Brasil. Vai estar aqui junto comigo falando o Nick Pierce. Hey, Nick, you can say hi. E o intuito desse webinar é falar um pouquinho sobre como que as organizações hoje têm gerenciado e têm monetizado o seu conteúdo, né? Então, a gente vai estar focando aqui um pouco em Object Storage, como uma maneira de estar arquivando, né? Mas também verificando como a gente pode gerenciar esse conteúdo e os benefícios, né, de usar o Object Storage versus outras mídias, tá? A gente vai ter aqui, next slide, please. A gente vai ter aqui uma agenda, tá, onde eu vou falar um pouquinho aqui sobre a CIS, depois o Nick vai falar um pouquinho sobre a Object Matrix, a gente vai falar sobre essas razões pelas quais hoje o pessoal tem adotado mais e mais o Object Storage, né, falando um pouco sobre eficiência, colaboração e como monetizar esse conteúdo. Depois a gente vai falar um pouquinho sobre a solução da Object Matrix, né, que seria o Matrix Store, tá? Vai falar rapidamente sobre alguns estudos de caso que a gente tem com a ITN e com a MSG. Depois a gente vai abrir para algumas discussões e vai fazer uma demo no final, tá? Então a gente tem que manter aqui a cadência aqui dessa apresentação para a gente ter tudo isso dentro de uma hora, tá? Next slide, please, Simon. Então, falando um pouquinho sobre a CIS Group, next slide. Vocês, a maioria, acredito que estão aqui já nesse call, vocês conhecem a gente, né? A CIS Group foi fundada há mais de 30 anos atrás, em 1988. Teve grandes clientes importantes aqui no Brasil, sempre focado nesse segmento de produção, né? Em 98, abriu o escritório na Flórida, né, nos Estados Unidos, e aí a gente veio, então, mais e mais focando nesse segmento de produção. Tivemos grandes clientes aqui no Brasil. Acredito que muitos de vocês que estão aqui no call com a gente são clientes da CIS hoje, né? E em 2012, a gente firmou essa parceria com a Object Matrix e teve também uma história de sucesso desde 2012 até agora, onde alguns clientes no Brasil têm a solução da Object Matrix, né? Eles usam para diferentes aplicações, mas a gente teve uma história bem interessante com o Object Matrix, né? E, obviamente, que esse slide aqui a gente está com ele até 2018, né? Mas a gente tem que atualizá-lo aqui até 2021, que a gente teve nesse hiato aí de 2018 até 2021, vários outros projetos interessantes aqui no Brasil. Next slide, please. Bom, como clientes, acredito que muitos de vocês conhecem a empresa muito focado em Evid, né, ao longo desses 30 e poucos anos, mas, na verdade, a gente tem diversificado muito, né? A gente tem um time novo na empresa que tem aí um pouco menos de 3 anos, mas a gente tem diversificado muito o nosso portfólio. Hoje em dia, obviamente, que a gente vem buscando soluções que atendam a essa nova fase do mercado, né? Soluções que estão hoje em cloud, soluções que permitem você fazer produção remota, soluções que são mais baseadas em SaaS. Então, assim, a gente diversificou muito o nosso portfólio e hoje tem conseguido atuar em projetos muito diversificados também, tanto na área de playout, na área de infraestrutura, na área de gerenciamento de mídia, de MAN em geral, não só mais na parte focada em PAN, tá? Next slide, please. Aqui, mais uma vez, como acho que a grande maioria de vocês conhece um pouco dos nossos clientes, aqui a gente tem clientes também, não só do Brasil, mas clientes da América Latina e dos Estados Unidos. A CIS hoje ela tem um escritório em Miami, tem um escritório no Rio, tem um escritório em São Paulo e tem uma base pequena também em Nova York. Então, a gente atua toda a costa leste dos Estados Unidos, né, fortemente aqui no Brasil e alguns clientes também na América Latina. Tá? Então, como vocês podem ver, aí a gente tem clientes espalhados aqui pelo Brasil, grandes cabeças de rede, afiliadas, e também alguns clientes corporativos e de podcast nos Estados Unidos. Next slide, please. Mais especificamente aqui com a Object Matrix, né? A gente tem clientes aqui no Brasil e Estados Unidos como Globo. A gente fez um projeto bem interessante de disaster recovery com a Globo, né? E isso está rodando até hoje. A gente tem outro cliente bastante importante que é a Casablanca, que também tem um projeto com Object Matrix sendo usado como Nearline. A gente tem a TV Anguera, também aqui no Brasil, usando Object Matrix desde, acredito que já uns 7, 8 anos, e a gente tem Miami Heat e NBC também lá nos Estados Unidos. Então a gente tem uma história, desde que a gente começou essa parceria, de bastante sucesso com eles. Next slide, please. Aqui só para dar uma visão para vocês, aqui seria um diagrama geral, né, de uma produção de mídia, onde a CIS tem um grande expertise nesse tipo de solução. Como eu falei para vocês, hoje a gente vem atuando em outras áreas também, e não só de PAN e MAN, mas aqui é onde tudo começou, né? Há 30 anos atrás, quando a gente começou a vender os primeiros editores não lineares, depois foi crescendo para histórias centralizados. Hoje em dia a gente tem sistemas aí todos interconectados com a parte de newsroom, seja ela news, NPS ou qualquer outro newsroom de mercado. A gente tem toda a parte de web editing para você fazer publicação em mídias sociais e Media Asset Management, né? Mas o foco aqui da nossa discussão hoje vão ser essas duas áreas aqui de Nearline Storage, de Archive, que é onde o Object Matrix nos ajuda e é o nosso parceiro dentro desse diagrama aqui, desse workflow, tá? Então, eu vou passar agora para o Nick Pierce da Object Matrix, tá? Ele vai fazer um pouco dessa apresentação e a gente vai ter um espaço depois para algumas discussões e perguntas no final. Se vocês quiserem também mandar pergunta pelo chat, tá? Fica à vontade e eu vou passar para ele. Nick, I will hand over to you, my friend. I'm sure your Portuguese is not that great yet, but it's getting there. But, feel free to do that in English.
But bom dia e obrigado, Felipe.
Welcome.
Done. Próxima, por favor, Simon. There you go. Even Simon's working in Portuguese. Hi, everybody. Nick Pierce. I may have met some of you on my travels to Brazil. If not, it's very nice to virtually meet you. Object Matrix is a software company, and we've been making object storage since 2003, but we only focus on media workflows and video. And in that time, much like the great guys at CIS Group, we have a proven track record of helping our customers to access their content, be that in a ingest, nearline, or archive workflow. Next slide. So the sorts of markets that we work in aren't just the traditional broadcast and sports teams. We work in news a lot with companies like CNN, ITN in the UK, the BBC, video on demand and OTT with British Telecom and people like Orange in France. We also work a lot with post-production and graphics companies. So whether that's Avid or Adobe, we've very strong experience in helping them organize and manage their media. Religious communities, ad agencies, and also you'll notice at the top left, corporate bodies. So banks, government, utilities, emergency services, but they're all video. They all need to ingest, process, tag, share, and archive video content. And so that's what we've been doing since the beginning of time, pretty much. Night, Simon? Just a little illustration to show our journey. Started in 2003, put the world's first object storage into a creative workflow in 2006. And from 2009 onwards, we decided to only focus on media and entertainment and the UK. And once we gained a good bunch of customers like the BBC, BT, those guys, we moved to France, and then we came down and started sort of visiting Sao Paulo and Rio, probably in the 2011 to 13 timeframe. From that point, we started sort of working a lot more in the territory in Latin America and Brazil. And since then, we've grown to the point where we have global broadcasters, banks, telecoms companies, post-production companies, all using our systems as a private local cloud on-prem, or more recently using our Matrix Store cloud platform. Simon? So the usual customer slide, you'll see on there the likes of CNN. They have 16 clusters globally with us in bureaus and centrally. People like the ATP, the tennis guys, they use us as their archive. ITN News moved away from LTO to ensure that they can access all of their archive all of the time. British Telecom, Orange, Madison Square Gardens in New York, all moved away from LTO so that they could have a living archive that anyone could access from anywhere. And so whether you're a sports team, a news broadcaster, an ad agency, we can help you to modernize your archive workflows and ensure that your staff can access content themselves without asking anyone else to help them. Now that's been really important. So why would you move or modernize your current infrastructure to an object storage, private cloud, or hybrid cloud? And it's important to understand that for many of our customers, it's not sometimes just a case of replacing what they have, because many of our customers, and I'm sure many of you, have made investments in LTO or ODA, and you don't particularly want to throw that away and put something new in. So we certainly are in the process of helping customers to modernize by running a new archive alongside their existing infrastructure, and then they can make the decision as to when to migrate some of that content off the older legacy stuff and onto our platform. So if you go to the next slide, Simon. One of the main reasons that people move to our platform is efficiency. So when producers, or whether that's sports or news or creative professionals, want content, when it's sat on a tape, they typically have to wait for someone to go and get it. No matter how good that robot is, there's always a delay. And so if your archive is on an object storage platform in your own data centers or in a cloud environment, then that content is instantly available and searchable, so that that producer can be way more efficient in getting hold of that content. And that means that they can do more. They can create more news content, more documentaries, more long form, more sports content, and build content for your communities without having to wait for someone to help them. And that person who's been asked to fetch the content, the operations person, they can get on with things that are more beneficial for the business than going and finding a tape to serve up content. So efficiency is where we can help you. And one of the things that we've recognized at the moment, certainly from the CFO, the financial people in your organizations, is that they don't want to spend $1 or 1 Brazilian real unless they're going to save 2 Brazilian reals, right? They don't want to do it. So unless it's going to save money and help to generate more revenue, typically people aren't interested in investing. But that's exactly what we can help you to do. Next slide. So collaboration. We've all seen it with the unfortunate events of 2020. Collaborating when content is in silos inside a building is very difficult to collaborate globally. People remoting in through VPNs, people using Teradici, using all these forms to get back into the office, complex and not very secure. Well, if it's on LTO, it's really hard to collaborate. If someone's got to go into a building in PPE gear to swap drives over, it's not efficient and it's not good. So modernizing that archive to make sure that your content is always available, whether that's a nearline or full archive, means that people at home can access their content from anywhere, either using the interfaces that they're used to or using our interfaces. And Mark will show you Vision, which is a fantastic browser that we have that many of our customers are using, that enables their staff to access their content from home, from the office, from the beach, wherever. Mark? And of course, everyone needs to make money these days. And certainly traditional broadcasters may not be using their archive to its advantage. We've certainly worked with some broadcasters in the UK and Ireland where they had a bunch of stuff on tape. They didn't really know what was on there. Now it's on Matrix Store. They're able to analyze it, look at it, browse it, and tag it, and work out what they can do with that content. And it's, 40 years of historical content when you're desperate to bring out new programming is really, really valuable. I mean, Netflix and those guys, they're making new stuff really quickly. If they had access to, the amount of archive content you've got, then they'd be pretty jealous. Now, I'm not sure if anyone watched the Michael Jordan documentary. The Michael Jordan documentary came pretty much exclusively from the NBA archive, right? And so the value that documentary brought to the NBA was huge, and to Netflix, right? Because it was untapped footage sat on tapes before they started to exploit it. So again, if you can make that content available, if someone sat at their desk at home can do a search for Michael Jordan and find a whole treasure trove of content, then that means that more can be done and you'll be able to generate more content for your community and hopefully create more revenue. Next slide. So ultimately, our aim is to save you time and money through being more operationally efficient by helping you orchestrate things and removing manual tasks, but by ensuring that your staff have access to content where and when they need it. Next question. Next slide, sorry. So what is Matrix Store? Good question, you ask. It's an object storage platform, and the founders of Object Matrix, myself, John and Francisco, all worked for EMC and built the world's first object storage platform, Centera, that was commercial. And then we decided that we wanted to make a platform that was more open, could run on pretty much any hardware that we qualify, and then was more in tune with media workflows, as we said. Security is a big feature of our platform. We have the ability to provide business rules to stop your data being deleted accidentally. We've put trash cans in the system to stop, because if creative professionals access file systems, they delete things, and we can help to roll that back very quickly. We also have the ability to audit everything. So if you're an ad agency or you've got some new content that you don't want anyone else to see, if that is released, we can tell you who released that and when from our system. So having that ability to really secure content and your archive is super important given the amount of value in it. We also have full metadata support. So you may have MAMs, DAMs, and PAMs, whether that's Avid or VizRT or Dalit. If you lose your MAM, DAM, or PAM, you lose access to your data. Simple as that. If you've archived it to Matrix Store, our object storage platform, you can still search for that content. You can still find that content, even if your asset management solution isn't available. So it's a future-proof way of accessing your content from anywhere, regardless of how you archived it. So if you have Avid Interplay, you archive from Avid Interplay to Matrix Store, you can use our tools to find that content. Next slide. So I won't talk around all of these. I've mentioned the security and the audits. We call it digital content governance. So how are you looking after your data? One of the fundamental issues of any object storage company is making the data proprietary so that you always have to come back to that company to get your data. We don't do that. We use off-the-shelf hardware. And if you store an MXF in Matrix Store, it'll be an MXF in Matrix Store. When we move that to cloud, we also make sure that it's non-proprietary. It goes into your bucket so that you can access that content without us. We also do that with a metadata. So any metadata that we have, we'll also make sure that is portable and can move to cloud storage, because the data belongs to you, not to us. We provide fantastic analytics tools, and Mark will show you that as well. And the archive browser Vision is a game changer in terms of being able to share content internally and externally with internal or external teams. And that ability to find things quickly is very important. And finally, on a commercial point of view, we can ensure that we work with you and CIS to work on commercial plans that suit your budget and your types of budget, whether that's CapEx or OpEx. Mark, Simon. So the three ways we deploy today: Matrix Store on-prem. 90% of our customers have Matrix Store in their own data centers, full 10 gig access to a private cloud in effect, with all of the workflows that you can do with that, from amazing Gluecast workflows to Avid and Adobe, etc. Matrix Store Cloud is a managed service that we run in the UK, is launching in the US and Europe in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And also we hope to be discussing what to do in Brazil in the coming months as well. The difference between Matrix Store Cloud and Amazon is there are no egress fees. We have media workflows built in. The performance is a lot better and it's non-proprietary, so you can keep all your metadata in there. So it's very, very interesting for companies who need to do frequent access to their archive without worrying about unexpected bills. And then hybrid. Hybrid's really important. If you're thinking as a company of moving cloudwards, then having a cluster, an object storage platform, Matrix Store on-prem to start. And then we have the tools and the ability to migrate your data to a cloud platform as well. So based on age rules or timing out. And the hybrid model is really important because you can keep control of your assets on-prem and in the cloud, as Mark will show you. Simon. Commercially, very flexible. We can do CapEx or OpEx, subscription, where we can actually put hardware and software into your data centers, but we charge an annual subscription fee for a fixed period, whether that's 3 or 5 years. And then Matrix Store Cloud, which is a per terabyte charge. So whether we've got all of the options for workflow and your commercial requirements. And we, as a team with CIS, we absolutely can provide the flexibility that you need. Next slide. So being focused on the media industry, we work with the partners that you work with, whether it's Adobe, Avid, Telestream, Gluecast. We've been working with some very exciting companies lately, like Blackbird. I think there's a company missing on this slide at the moment called Mjoll, M-J-O-L-L, and they all enable remote editing workflows, either to cloud storage like ours or on-prem storage if it's in place. And so if you need to do file transformation, file acceleration, Aspera, Signiant, File Catalyst, or asset management, we work with those partners. Now, if there's a partner that you work with that isn't in our list or in our community, you let us know and we will start to work with them. So someone like Be In Sports in Miami working with MediaPro, they said, we've got a VizRT system. We wanted to work with Matrix Store. So we went off, we worked with VizRT, and now VizRT, Viz1 works perfectly with Matrix Store for archive workflows. And so that's our commitment to being part of this industry. Next slide. So just going to talk a little bit about some of the customers we have. Obviously, Felipe mentioned that in Brazil, we've had TV Globo on the disaster recovery project for a number of years. Casablanca has a couple of systems, but a lot of the people on the slide there that you can see have been moving away from LTO. Madison Square Gardens, 5 petabyte LTO to Matrix Store for an internal private cloud. ITN, I mentioned, and BT. I think NBC Universal is an interesting case study. They have multiple Matrix Stores for Avid PAM, Avid MAM, and an Avato MAM system. And they intend to grow that as a sort of a nearline archive before pushing it off to their cloud storage platforms. So it's an incredibly flexible system for companies that need to modernize and think about that journey to cloud, although they may have content sat on LTO or ODA today. Next slide. ITN had a petabyte archive. And the thing with ITN is that their pension, the thing that needs to be valuable, is tied to their archive. So they have to make money from their archive. They needed a platform that they had instant, fast access to everything without having any egress fees. And that was integrated into the way that they worked with their own in-house MAM. So they migrated through Diva, all of the content off the tapes, about 400,000 assets very quickly and with zero loss. Now they have instant access to absolutely all of their archive for making all of their long form and short form content. And it's been a really great story. And, you know, if you'd like to speak to those guys or any of our customers, more than happy to do that. Next slide. Briefly mention Madison Square Gardens. They've been a customer for 3 years already, using us as a backup for their online platforms. And in the summer of 2020, they recognized that not being able to access their archive because of being blocked from accessing buildings was not acceptable. So they have purchased a 5 petabyte system to migrate all of their LTO to Matrix Store. And they will also be adding another 5 petabytes this summer for enhancing their disaster recovery, because they have one system in Madison Square Gardens Networks, which is the TV studio, and they have another Matrix Store in Madison Square Gardens, the stadium, just underneath the basketball court, I think. So that's about as interesting as that bit gets. But again, they have a full active archive that they can access everything. And the beauty is it costs them very little in operational cost, because it's a private cloud, it manages itself. They just access the data when they need to. Next slide. So if you're thinking, what will this do for me? Well, everyone in the world, no matter what industry in, needs to work from anywhere at the moment. So WFH, work from anywhere, is a huge thing, and we can enable that. It allows creative professionals to self-serve content. So no asking people to go and get a tape or find content for them. They can search and find that content for themselves. If you have outages, maybe you've got a big thunderstorm or something happening outside your window, Felipe, and your electricity goes off, then you might need to go and access another site. Well, our system does that, and it's built in. And because we work with fantastic workflow engines like the stuff from Gluecast and other partners, it means that a lot of those things can be automated and orchestrated, so you don't have to do too many manual actions. Predictable costs are really important. In storage companies, when you add in more storage, we typically add more operational costs and maintenance. And as you grow to multiple petabytes, that can get quite scary. So we work with our customers to provide capped support and fixed length contracts so that the financial teams know exactly how much they're going to pay for the next 5 years. We also work on framework agreements to ensure that we can give you the right commercial agreement that works for you and for us, that you have a predictable roadmap of cost. If you move to cloud and you use public cloud for your archive, you will not have a predictable road to cost. You will get some unexpected costs down the road. And ultimately, if you're managing an archive or you're managing data, we can help you save money and time in terms of how you manage and access that content. Next slide. So that's it from me on the sort of explaining what we do. I think, are we doing a discussion point first, or are we going to do a demo, Felipe?
No, we're doing the discussion first, Nick, and then we go to demo.
If anyone has any questions, please do ask some questions in the chat box, or feel free to turn your video on as well and ask that. But I think we may already have some questions lined up. Yeah.
Yeah, the guys need to unmute themselves, and then we can ask their questions.
Who's first? Felipe, is this someone from your team?
Yeah, so I can start, Felipe, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay,
Sure.
so Nick, so what we are seeing, some customers are on the phase on where they need to modernize their infrastructure. How can we Object can help us do? I mean, what kind of tools and what we can do to migrate, for instance, OGA, LTO, and whatever to the cloud, or even on a hybrid environment?
Yeah, so we have Well, we work with partners, number one. So we have partners who can help integrate with things like Diva, if you have those systems and migrate away from those. But as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not all about migration. Some people want to run a new archive alongside an older archive. And, so because we have APIs, we can integrate with the systems to make sure that maybe they can run two systems in parallel. And certainly, we don't know of any broadcaster in certainly France or the UK that is using ODA. It's not a platform that's taken on in Europe very much, and nor North America. So we're seeing more people actively looking to move away from LTO. Now, whether that's they're a big broadcaster or a small post-production facility, because, I was on a call last week with a post house in LA, and they had to send people in to get tape drives changed around and put LTO tapes into a drive so people could do their work. And they were a smallish agency, and they've realized that they can't do that anymore. They need to move to a different platform. So showing them the tools like Vision that Mark will show later, that helps people to access their content once it's been migrated. But that act of migrating, we can do that. CIS has the expertise to help with migration projects, and we have partners technology-wise who can help as well. Does that answer your question, Alex?
Yes. Thank you, Nick.
Perfect.
Nick, just before I go to the next question, a quick comment from my side, and I'd like to have your comment and share your thoughts about that. About ODA, do you see like a big trend in Europe or US for ODA?
Well, hopefully there's no one from Sony on the call. Certainly, Simon used to work for ODA in Sony in his previous life. No, in short, ODA hasn't been adopted. I think it was very slow coming to market. The initial technology wasn't stable, and by the time that it sort of came out, it's a little bit too late. So I can't think of any installations that I know of in mainland Europe or the UK, and certainly any of our US customers are not using ODA. I don't, maybe it's just not being marketed well enough in Europe or North America. But I think, there's very, very, very few people adopting it. And I don't think it will be adopted now that cloud is taking more of a march.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Next one.
Yeah, no, so Nick, this is Nuno.
I can't see you, Nuno.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I have a still broken webcam. I'm sorry. I need to call support.
Yeah.
Well, look, I was hearing you to talk about the cloud and moving to the cloud, and of course I'm very aware of all the integrations we already have, and I see that in the presentation we are talking about latest integrations. So could you go deep on that one? I really interested to know what we have in latest integrations, because in Brazil we have a few installations that they have very, very large integration with other vendors, other workflows. But can you talk a little bit more on that, please?
Yeah, sure. So we're constantly trying to work with vendors in the market, from the VizRTs to Dalits, the Avids, etc. But also we work with a huge amount of the smaller, new, more innovative companies, and even someone like File Catalyst, right? File Catalyst has been around for a very long time. They just got bought. But we've been working with them to integrate their technology into our Vision interface, so that if you're in a remote location, you can upload your content to Matrix Store using a File Catalyst plugin, and it's dead easy. So things like that File Catalyst integration are really important for remote workflows, cloud or on-prem. We're working with companies like Miol. Now, I know that Miol is a partner company that CIS Group is working with as well. And they enable really cool sort of remote editing capability on top of Matrix Store. Now, whether that Matrix Store is in your data center or a cloud, for your editors to be able to do remote editing from an archive is just phenomenal. And that's what we're starting to see is companies like Miol, Blackbird, LucidLink, those technologies that enable you to find that content, enable you to work on it remotely, That's the sort of latest and greatest things we're doing. And of course, we still keep working with, Gluecast, the Telestreams, the Asperas and Signiants, etc. But it's these, it's our agility to work and certify workflows with these new, exciting remote working companies that is really helping us. So if you'd like any more information on those, I know we have a webinar coming up with Miol and Blackbird, and we've got a lot of information on our website about those. So does that answer your question, Nuno?
Yes. Thank you very much, man.
No problems, mate.
Hey, Nick, this is Alberto.
Hey, Alberto.
The COVID pandemic has forced us to reinvent how we work. So most of our customers are doing, for example, remote production, So I would like to know if you have any relevant case with Matrix Store Cloud to share with us.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, most of our customers have had private clouds on-prem. And about 2 years ago, we started, maybe 3, providing Matrix Store as a service, it was called then, Matrix Store Cloud now, for customers who don't want to have an on-prem installation because they need the space for editorial, or they just want to reduce their footprint of their real estate. And actually this year, reducing footprint of real estate is more realistic than having room for editorial people. And so they needed a service. Now, if you need to access your content frequently, it's well known that you don't want to have it on LTO because it's going to take time to find and bring back. Same for ODA. And you don't want to have it in a public cloud archive because it's going to cost you a hell of a lot of money to bring back. So we work with people like ATP Media. Their entire archive is in Matrix Store Cloud. It enables them to, that we've integrated with the tools that they want. So they wanted File Catalyst, we integrated it. They're looking at things like the remote working things we've talked about, and we integrated it. And so that enables them to not just find and reuse their archive, but also work on their archive from anywhere. And the benefit of Matrix Store Cloud is that there are no egress fees. You pay a per terabyte fee, you know what your costs are going to be, and you can do things like partial file restore, something you can't do from a public cloud platform. So the sorts of things that if you're, a sports broadcaster, or you're filming long running events and you want to go and get back that bit from the public cloud, you have to go and get the whole thing and bring it back. But from Matrix Store Cloud, we can do that PFR very easily. So I think that the reason people are moving to cloud this time last year is very different to now, in that it's been accelerated. But many people who jumped in and went to Amazon or Azure are finding out that it's great for the data services. It's great for a deep archive if you never want to touch your data. It's not great for an active archive. So we've been recommending to take a multi-cloud approach. And a multi-cloud approach is to use a platform like Matrix Store on-prem or in the cloud for your active archive, but keep an insurance copy of your data in something like an AWS Deep Glacier, which is cheap enough to keep your data, but you never really want to access it unless there's a big problem. So I think multi-cloud is something that's going to really be talked about a lot more this year and next year. Is that any useful?
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
No worries.
So, Nick, it's Felipe Dominguez. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. You?
Good. So, Nick, we know that content is more important than ever. So we have content creators producing millions of assets every year. The number is quite increasing. So how Object Matrix helps on this rapid expansion?
I think that traditionally, when you add more capacity to a system, you had to manage that, right? You had to move things around or reinstall user controls and access controls and everything else. Object storage is truly plug and scale. So you can start with a system from us, from as little as 150 terabytes and grow to multiple petabytes simply by adding in a node. And that adding in a node is racking a node, turning it on, and it's done. you do nothing. We've got customers like BT who've been using our system for 11 years, the same installation. They've had 55 nodes, and it's now reduced to 20 nodes because we took out the older, smaller nodes and replaced them with much denser nodes. And the data that was on them migrated automatically onto the new hardware. So they've had 12 generations of hardware in a system running for 11 years with incredibly small amounts of downtime. Compare that to the amount of work that they did to migrate from LTO 2 to 4 to 4 to 6 and now 6 to 8. It's the difference in operational costs is incredible. So expansion is easy with Object Matrix. What's even better is it's non-proprietary and future-proof. So we're not using proprietary hardware. We're not using proprietary formats, which is why the world's largest banks, broadcasters, telecoms companies trust Object Matrix with their data. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
No worries.
And also, yeah, as I mentioned, so moving to the cloud can be quite tricky, right? Maybe on costs and availability. A hybrid environment seems to be a good option, in my opinion. Yeah. And so how you see an Object Matrix see the long-term content archive? I know that you mentioned multi-cloud, but how do you see this long-term?
Look, ultimately, your data needs to be portable, right? Mm-hmm. And not just your data, your metadata. So at the moment, if you've got it petabytes in Glacier, it's going to cost you a lot to move it to another platform, right? There's a little bit like ransomware, right? You have to pay to get your data back. Even if you use Amazon or Avid Cloud, those data centers can be on the West Coast or the East Coast of the US. If that region goes down, you don't have access to your data unless you've paid to have extra copies in another region. So even putting it into a public cloud platform doesn't guarantee your data is available. The only way to do that is to spend a lot more money putting it into another region and getting your data out. So long-term archiving, I think you need to look at a multiple approach of a platform where your archive is available instantly. Now that could be proxies, right, of everything. Proxies that are good enough for you to use on digital platforms. Meanwhile, the high res could be in a cloud platform, public cloud, that is super cheap, right? Deep Glacier, please don't ever touch it because I don't want to. However, you still want to be able to manage it. So if you use our system, we can move the data to your public cloud account. We will create a proxy of the content and keep it locally. So your editors and your producers can still find and search for stuff locally. And if they really need that copy from cloud, then they can do that in the most economic way possible, right? If you only use public cloud, you're constantly searching and spending money on the cloud platform. Regardless of how big a discount you have, it's still going to cost you. So it's an interesting one. I think the thing that you need to look out for, in all honesty, is my data proprietary, right? Whoever put it into the cloud, do I have to use them to bring it back? Well, you shouldn't have to do that, right? It's your data. If it goes into your cloud bucket, that data should be available to other workflows. And we do that. We put your data into your bucket in a non-proprietary way. And that is the most important thing about the future of cloud, is making sure your data is portable and in a non-proprietary format. And that's what we do today, and that's what we aim to do.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, okay. Cool. Thank you.
No worries. Are there any questions? You can ask in Brazilian Portuguese if you wish. I'm sure that many of the Felipes will translate for me. So if you feel more comfortable asking in your own language, then please do so.
Yeah, I think we can move to the demo, Nick. And if somebody wants to send a question here in the chat, se vocês quiserem mandar alguma pergunta aqui no chat, pessoal, a gente manda aqui pro Nick.
I have just one more question about there are many flavors that we can select to store our archive today. So, in your opinion, what do you think that is that a rule or some recommendation to select some kind of prioritization in online, nearline, cloud, or deep archiving. You understand?
Sorry, the line went up a little bit for me then. Could you repeat that for me, Carlos?
Yes, but is there some recommendation to select what kind of archive we use? Online, nearline, cloud, or deep archive?
You mean like tierization if you need to put like in nearline or deep archive? Yeah.
I think that depends on what the requirements are on your data, Carlos. So if you need to have, you could decide to have, and as we've discussed in the past, you could decide to have a smaller amount of nearline on-prem and have that data time off to a different platform and tiered off based on some rules. So it really depends on the requirements on the data. If you need really fast 10 gig instant access to your archive, we recommend having something on-prem in your data center. And then you could use public cloud or our own cloud as a backup or disaster recovery location. If you're talking about sort of a long-term archive where you want to have access to most things, but a proxy or mezzanine file would do locally, but you want the high res in a public cloud platform, that's also a really valid thing to do. I mean, the most important thing is really understanding where your data is, because at the moment, we've seen many examples of people sharing files on Dropbox, WeTransfer, drives being sent out, and that's really not a safe strategy for archiving and sharing content. So I think certainly in many environments that where you're looking to go towards the cloud, but you're not quite ready yet, I think a hybrid model of taking an on-prem object storage platform that has the tools to move data to the cloud to help you move to that cloud environment is really important. And I think, to be honest, I think we'll be looking at hybrid deployments for the majority of companies for the next five or so years, because not everyone has the big NASCAR or Disney discounts with AWS or Azure. The rest of us have to, pay our way. And so actually having a system that enables you to move your content to the cloud in an appropriate way that's appropriate to your budget, that hybrid model is probably the best thing to start with.
Okay.
Does that answer that, Carlos? Okay. All right, so we'll let Mark do a quick demo and then we'll have any more questions at the end. Go, Mark.
Okay, can you all hear me and see my screen? Great stuff.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is a quick look at the tools that come with your Matrix store. To start with, you need an administration tool. This is our administration tool. It's a web interface that looks at the node itself. And once you log in, if you've got the cluster admin permissions, you see all the things on the left that are the way you administer the cluster. You can actually break the cluster into what we call spaces, where you can have areas for different parts of the businesses or different sub-companies within the business. And those spaces can then have their own vaults and their own user groups and users. We've obviously got Active Directory integration so that those users can just be imported, but the users themselves can actually be very granular in what they're allowed to do. So they will have permission to access vaults, and within those vaults, they can have either a role or even a direct permission to just do certain things within the system. We can even take it further than that into the capabilities and say what the end user is allowed to do with the system. Everybody's gone quiet on me. Are you all there?
Yeah, crack on.
Great stuff. So the capabilities allows me to see and to say exactly what people can do within the system as well. And then in the background, we've got all these tasks running to look after the data, checking it, verifying the objects, transaction monitors, allowing us to see who's allowed to transact with the data itself. And as Nick said, all of those functions are audited. And those audits are either at an admin level, a space level, or even on the individual vaults themselves. We can see who's reading what IP they're reading from, and what assets they're reading as well in the system, which is really good for understanding who's using the data itself. We've taken the audits one step further now, where we've added in our Sense database. And our Sense interface does exactly that. It gives us even more statistics and information about the cluster. So the basic overview about what situation and health are my nodes in. I can take it a bit deeper and look at individual bits of hardware and even the power usage on them, the throughput, network traffic. I can look at specific applications and how those applications are being used and spikes in usage on them. But probably some of the most important ones are things such as the statistics on a vault level or a cluster level. So I could go and find a vault and see what kind of statistics are coming out of that data. I can also set up a lot of alerts as well within the system. So if my vault is getting full or my cluster is getting full, I'm going to get an email or a Slack message or a message of some description telling me system's getting busy or full. And I can even set up the replication side of things as well. Replication being the bit for bit copy to another cluster somewhere else within the system. So let's go back and just talk about those vaults quickly. So these vaults are where we apply our policies. And I can set up a vault today, give it a name. I could set up a capacity. I can set up the access type, so I could stop anyone deleting any data from this vault. Equally, I could allow data, but I could turn on a compliance, the ability to lock the data for a time period and say this data is now compliance locked for 90 days if I type in 90 days. Even then, I could switch that off, allow delete, and if my user has permission to delete, I've got a trash can built into my storage. This was at the request of customer who wanted to make sure that the data was safe and they had a little bit of a buffer on their trash can, a bit like the trash can on your computer, except instead of setting it so that we have to manually purge it, so we could set that ourselves and we come in and purge it manually, we've put just a buffer zone on it so that we automatically empty that trash can for you on the setting that you decide, and you can decide however you want that to be. I mentioned built-in replication, bit by bit replication from one cluster to the other, and we can change the protection scheme in that way. So we normally take a dual protection scheme, but I might say I want to make this single protection scheme because I'm replicating to another matrix store. Equally, I might take single replication because my other copy is going into a hybrid vault. That would be something like an AWS or a NES3 compatible storage. And as long as we get the notification, we'll actually keep 2 copies on the matrix store until we get a confirmation in the metadata that the second copy is safely in the external hybrid storage, the other storage, at which point we'll drop it down to single. That's quite a useful feature there, and certainly has the benefit of making sure you've always got those 2 copies, initially in matrix store and then later in matrix store and your cold or cloudy archive. Straight away, I could add users and use the vaults in that way. Now we've got standard file system interfaces. We've got an S3 gateway, we've got a Samba gateway, we've got an NFS interface, and we've got our tool MXFS, Matrix Store File System. Incredibly useful for just mounting the drive as a local machine, a local mount point, runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and is very, very performant. I'm going to concentrate on our tool called Vision, though. Vision is our browser interface looking at the matrix store. The beauty of Vision is you can skin it to look like anything you like. So just before this meeting, I set up a quick logo, CIS logo, grabbed a standard color scheme and set myself running with a nice little picture in the background that some of you may recognize. When I log into my Vision, I'll see all of the vaults that I have access to on the left-hand side here. Those vaults I could skip between and see the data. And in the center here, you can see I've got access to the assets. I can see the assets live. That is incredibly useful to actually be able to see these assets and see all the metadata on this right-hand panel that we've extracted in the storage. That's metadata such as XMP metadata, all the standard media info and Even IMF or AS11, AS12 will be in there. But you can see straight away we've got great search functionality within the system where I can quickly look up somebody and find all the assets that are related to that person. They've either got it in the title, in the extended metadata, or in the tags, possibly. And tagging is quite useful where we say, yeah, this person, we can add extra metadata or extra tags to the system just to give these people quick and easy access to the metadata and to the searches. Just clear out that search and run back to the center of the system. Oh, kill the search. And let's play a video. I mean, we got videos, and as you can see, if they've got a thumbnail on them, we've generated a proxy, either using a Gluecast or some off-the-shelf system, and we've tied that proxy to the high-res asset. That means you've always got a playable asset in the Matrix store. It's got standard JKL support, so I can stop, start, press a few buttons, and then I've also got the ability to change between time format, the ability to speed up and slow down, and that last one on the left there, clipping. I can turn on clipping, and instead of bringing back the whole 4-hour asset from my Matrix store, I can just clip in that little clip. I can rename it as my asset, and I can decide whether I want to put it in the same folder or whether I want to put it in another part of the Matrix store, maybe into my subclips vault, for example, or a subfolder within that vault itself. So that's a really great way to make sure you can just search your system, look at it remotely, find your assets, and ensure that you've got the ability to just get back the data you want. I've also got the ability to share as well. So I can easily grab a link. Where's my link? Get link. I can get an internal private link. So you'd need a log on to be able to see that, or I can get an external public link, and I can decide to keep that for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, depending on how I want to do it. And then I could share this with any one of my friends today down in Brazil, and they would have access to this link and be able to download this asset for 1 day only. So it's really, really useful for sharing assets in that way. You can also upload and download. And of course, upload allows us to fill in bespoke metadata. So I can set up a quick form that's super easy, and I can be filling in data as quickly as this, adding my tags to it. And again, coming back and searching those things just as quickly within the system. Got the filtering on the left-hand side as well, where I can filter down on dates, etc. within the system. But one of the other workflow Nick mentioned quite a bit was the hybrid workflow, the offloading it to other systems. You can see here I've got a vault with just a dozen videos in it. You see some of those videos got a big red cloud on them. Now, we've still got the proxy and the thumbnail, so I've still got a playable asset, but you'll see the actual asset is taking up no space on the Matrix store. The high res isn't in the Matrix store. If I go down to my deep archive, I can actually see my high res is off in a bucket. And it was set there by policy. So we set a policy using our move to HSM. And that policy said after 14 days of not being touched, this asset goes to a deep archive. Now I've got the advantage of being able to see all that metadata, search it, find it, play it, check it's the asset I'm actually after. And if it turns out it is the one I want, which in this case, yeah, let's say it is, I can then easily, if I've got permission, of course, restore it from that deep archive at a press of a few buttons. And then I'll go off, tell the move to service to pull that back out of Glacier or S3, and that'll come back up probably within the next 24 hours once we've served it back from the storage. So as you can see, Vision is extremely useful and a tool that's being used by lots and lots of our customers just because of the remote self-serve option within the system. Was there anything else in particular you wanted me to cover on this, Philippe, for the demo side of things?
No, I think that's it, Mark. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask our folks here, does anybody have any questions so far? You can do the question in Portuguese. We can discuss in Portuguese, or feel free to write. We are reaching the end of our webinar here, but we still have a few minutes. Does anybody have any question?
Oi, Felipe. O José Edilson aqui que está falando, trabalho na Record. Eu
Oi, José
gostaria
Edilson.
de saber aí quais as considerações, né, em relação ao Object Storage, né, e essa solução aí que vocês estão fazendo a demonstração. Geralmente é uma preocupação que sempre vem na cabeça da gente, é quando os nodes ali estiver cheio, a gente precisa acrescentar ali capacidade, aí às vezes já passou algum tempo e aquele hardware já não está mais disponível, aí você tem que colocar um outro hardware novo, fazer a migração do conteúdo antigo para esse hardware novo, né? Porque comparativo, né? A LTO aí, apesar de estar saindo já né, já está ficando muito obsoleto, mas antes você colocava lá uma library nova, por exemplo, você pegava todas as fitas e fisicamente você colocava lá na nova, era mais ou menos um processo parecido com esse, e tudo já funcionava, né? Para esses storages aí, de Object Storage, não é por aí, né? Então, é mais
Entendi.
queria saber as considerações em relação a isso, né?
Okay, so Nick, do you get that one?
Yeah. It was just the last 10 sentences I didn't catch.
Okay. So here's a question from TV Record, Nick. They are actually asking about how is the expansion of number of nodes and disks when it gets full and you want to add more disks and nodes. So if you had to migrate everything, if you have to if you lose anything, if sometimes disks get old and you get like new versions of disks, how it goes together. So basically they have some experience with LTO tapes, but they don't have experience with object storage. So he's worried about this life cycle and how to expand the system when it gets full. Basically that's his concern.
Yeah, sure. So I think that for one, that's the sort of lifetime of a node is, well, as long as you want it to run, really. The way that we expand in nodes. So we don't supply partly populated nodes. You have a node that has all the drives in it, and that will run until you want to stop paying for support for it. The longest a customer has run a matrix store cluster node for is 10 years. We don't recommend keeping nodes running that long. But when you want to add more capacity, you buy a node, you plug it in, and it joins the system organically. You don't have to remanage or reconfigure or migrate anything. If you wish to add new nodes in 5 years' time to replace older nodes, then because the technology in 5 years' time, the capacity will be much better, the systems will be faster, you simply push a button called decommission, and all of the data on the old nodes will automatically migrate to the new nodes. Done. Nothing to do at all on your side. So your experience of migrating LTO is completely different to the experience of working with an object storage platform. And the great thing is, Ricardo, is that we have many customers who've done this over the last 10 years. So it's not a new sales message. We have people with a history of running our systems for so many years where they have added more nodes, added new nodes, removed nodes with absolutely no problems whatsoever. And basically we support the hardware as long as you wish to run it until it comes to a point where the actual physical components are out of warranty. So yeah, it's very future-proof in terms of and easy to add and scale.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. Nick, ficou claro para vocês, pessoal?
Assim, ficou legal. A explicação aí era mais ou menos esse overview mesmo que eu queria
Perfeito.
saber
Você
como que era.
viu, assim, no caso de uma uma substituição, né? Você tem uma maneira de fazer um botão lá que chama Decommission, ele faz toda a troca automática para você, né? E no caso de uma expansão, você adiciona um node e ele começa a fazer parte do sistema, sem você ter que refazer nenhum tipo de file system, nada disso. Só adicionar o node, ele passa a ser um grande node com esse novo, né?
Uhum.
Ok, tem uma pergunta aqui do Gustavo que ele mandou pelo chat. There is a question from Gustavo that he sent over the chat saying, what about the automatic uploads? And Mark answered, for automated uploads, I would use a synchronizing tool to Matrix Store S3 interface. Once in the Matrix Store, all of your tools are cross-compatible, so uploads will be visible in Vision.
Yeah, so basically just any sort of backup. We recommend things like Syncovery. It's a very good tool that runs on Mac, Linux, and Windows. Watch folder based, and it can just move content from your Avid storage, from whatever storage you've got, into Matrix Store, whether that's on-prem or in the cloud. So very easy.
Okay.
Yeah, we've even got customers backing up their Avid projects at the end of every day into central bucket, and then if someone else needs it, they just drop the project files and any new assets they require back to their local machine to work. And then, of course, at the end of their day, they back all their project files up again themselves. So they can use their projects remotely like that, as well as using automated tools that do all that for us. So.
Ok. Alguma outra pergunta, pessoal? Nenhuma? Okay.
One thing I would mention before we finish is that if you'd like to try any of our systems, we have an online vision where we can give you access to our Matrix Store cloud, where you can do what Mark's doing, upload some data, play with the demo stuff and have a go. If you like to test things on site, we have a whole suite of virtual machines where you can basically set up a virtual Matrix Store and all the applications. And I'm sure that there are many other ways that we can help you get on your journey to on-prem cloud and hybrid cloud with the guys at CIS. So if you'd like to try or have a more in-depth meeting about Matrix Store and what we can offer, then please do let the team at CIS know.
Perfect, Nick. So guys, thank you very much for joining. We really appreciate your time, and we have record this webinar, so we're gonna send over to you a link so you guys can download this video and watch and share that later. And I'd like to also thanks Open Matrix team, Mark, Nick, Simon, Laura, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And hope we can have other discussions in the near future again. Okay, thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks everyone for your time. Nice to see you all.
Okay, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you, Philip.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Bye. Obrigado. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.